It began like any ordinary school year. New books, new lockers, same old hallways. But for Lily Donovan, 17 and fragile, this year would not be ordinary. It would be the start of something monstrous. Hillridge High School was a typical suburban school, rows of red lockers, cheerleaders gliding through corridors like royalty. But beneath the smiles and morning announcements lurked something rotten. Her name was Samantha Matthews, blonde, beautiful, confident, and cruel. At 19, she was the envy of many and the fear of more. Captain of the cheerleading squad, queen of the lunchroom, and the tormentor of Lily's waking hours. It started small, a shove in the hallway, a smirk as Lily picked up her scattered notebooks, whispers behind her back, so sharp they pierced like blades. Rumors spread like wildfire that Lily was weird, broken, or worse. But Samantha didn't stop. She escalated. She turned Lily's life into a performance of humiliation, publicly mocking her in the cafeteria, making classmates laugh as Lily stood frozen, her face red with shame. And all the while, the teachers did nothing. They looked the other way, just like everyone else. Lily, once hopeful, began to shrink into herself, into silence. And in that silence, darkness grew. No one noticed. No one cared, except her father, Mark Donovan, who had no idea how deep her wounds ran. But what no one could have guessed is that soon Samantha wouldn't just ruin Lily's days at school. She would invade her home, her family, and leave behind something far more horrifying than teenage cruelty. February 27th, 2011. A cold night, the kind of night where even the walls seemed to listen. Inside the Donovan house, silence lingered until it broke. Not with a scream, but with a whispered cry. That night, Lily couldn't hold it in any longer. She sat at the edge of the couch, fingers trembling, eyes swollen from days, weeks of silent suffering. Her father, Mark Donovan, looked up from his paperwork, startled by the sound of his daughter's voice. And then, the dam burst. Lily told him everything about Samantha, the torment, the rumors, the humiliation, the way it never stopped, how she dreaded waking up every morning, knowing she'd have to survive another day at school, alone. Her words came out in sobs, in waves of pain that had built up for months. Mark listened, or tried to. Guilt hit him like a hammer. Since the death of his wife, he'd buried himself in work, in bills, in being functional. But somewhere along the way, he'd stopped seeing, really seeing his daughter. And now she was breaking. He clenched his fists. He'd failed her, but he wouldn't fail again. The next day, Mark made a choice. He would confront Samantha Matthews himself, face to face, March 1st, after cheerleading practice. Mark waited outside Hillridge High. Samantha emerged bathed in the golden glow of sunset, laughing with her friends, completely unaware of what was coming. Or so he thought. As he approached her, voice firm but fatherly, she listened, head tilted, a soft smile playing on her lips. And then, something shifted. She leaned in, her voice dropped, her gaze sharpened. Samantha, sweet, cruel, calculating, saw opportunity. She saw a lonely man, a broken man, a man desperate to protect his daughter. And in that desperation lay his greatest weakness. What began as a confrontation turned into a conversation, then a flirtation, then something far darker. Mark didn't know it yet, but in trying to save his daughter, he just opened the door to her destroyer. What happened when the protector becomes the problem? That spring, Mark Donovan was no longer just Lily's father. He had become something else, something weak, manipulated, and frighteningly unaware. After that first meeting outside the school, Samantha moved quickly. She knew how to spot cracks in people. And with Mark, she didn't just find a crack, she found a fracture. Her text started innocently. "Thanks for talking. You're a good dad. I wish more men were like you." Flattery laced with venom, a slow, deliberate unraveling. Mark, still grieving, still isolated, told himself it was harmless. A conversation, a distraction, a way to forget the weight of being both mother and father. But distraction turned to dependency. Texts turned to phone calls to late-night drives into Samantha's world. And Lily, she noticed, her father became distant, absent at dinner, moody, his eyes, once quick to catch her sadness, now glazed over. The man who had promised to protect her from Samantha was now under her spell. But it didn't stop there. Samantha began pushing boundaries, visiting their home under the guise of tutoring, sitting on the same couch Lily once cried on, laughing in the kitchen, sharing coffee with Mark. To Lily, it felt like an invasion. Her tormentor wasn't just at school anymore. She was in her living room. Her safe space had been breached. But Samantha wasn't content with winning. She wanted control. Over Mark, over Lily, over everything. And with every smile she gave Mark, with every night she stayed a little later, she drove the wedge deeper between father and daughter. Lily's warnings fell on deaf ears. When she told Mark about the bullying getting worse, he brushed it off, dismissed it, as if her pain no longer mattered. And behind Lily's back, Samantha smirked. She wasn't just stealing a father's attention. She was stealing his soul. And Lily, she was slowly being erased. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels dangerous, like the air before a storm, or the breath you hold before everything shatters. For Lily Donovan, that silence came one ordinary evening in May. Her father was in the shower, his phone left on the table, unlocked. She wasn't looking to snoop, not at first. She just wanted answers, any clue to explain his sudden mood swings, the missed dinners, the distant eyes. But what she found was something no child should ever see. Text after text from Samantha Matthews. Last night was amazing. Miss you already. Should I wear the red one tonight? Her hands trembled. Her breath caught in her throat. Each message, a stab. And then photos. Grainy, intimate, undeniable. The cheerleader who tormented her at school was sleeping with her father. Lily dropped the phone. It hit the carpet with a dull thud, but the impact in her chest was sharper than a blade. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was total. That night she confronted him, tears in her eyes, voice shaking. How could you? She's the one who's ruining my life, and now you've let her in? But Mark didn't cry. He didn't apologize. He got angry, accused Lily of invading his privacy, told her she was being dramatic, grounded her for looking through his phone. That moment changed everything. Mark no longer hid the affair. Samantha came by more often, stayed longer, laughed louder. Lily wasn't just watching her father slip away. She was being forced to live with the enemy. Samantha would lounge on the family couch like it was hers, sip from Lily's mug, give her those mocking glances that said, I won. You lost. For Lily, home was no longer a sanctuary. It was a war zone, and she was outnumbered. Her pleas became whispers. Her whispers turned to silence. And in that silence, Samantha thrived, because nothing empowers a manipulator more than a house full of secrets, and no one left to believe the victim. There's something horrifying when the monster doesn't live under your bed. She sits on your couch, drinks from your cup, laughs with your father. By June 2011, Samantha Matthews wasn't just a guest anymore. She was a resident. She came over almost every night. Study sessions, she'd say. Just catching up, Mark would explain. But Lily knew, she always knew, Samantha didn't knock anymore. She let herself in. She'd toss her cheerleading bag by the door like she owned the place. Mark would light up when she arrived. Lily would shrink into the background, unseen, unheard. And then came the stares, the slow, cruel glances Samantha would shoot Lily from across the room, the smirk curling just slightly at the edge of her mouth, as if to say, look what I've taken from you. Mark stopped defending Lily. Her cries were dismissed as overreactions. You're just jealous. You need to grow up. And the more Samantha stayed, the more Lily disappeared. Her room became a cell, her school, a battlefield, her home, a haunted house. Every corner echoed with the sound of betrayal. Footsteps in the hallway at midnight, whispers behind closed doors, laughter at the dinner table. Without her. One night, Lily awoke to muffled giggles outside her door. Samantha's voice, her father's low chuckle, the creak of floorboards as they passed her room. She pulled the covers over her head and cried, but tears couldn't protect her anymore, and silence no longer felt like survival. Something inside Lily snapped. On June 10th, she made a decision. If her father wouldn't see the truth, if no one at school would listen, she would go to Samantha's parents. That afternoon, she walked up the Matthews' front porch, rang the doorbell, and told them everything. The bullying, the manipulation, the affair. For a brief moment, Lily felt hope, a flicker of justice. But she didn't know that her words would only ignite a much darker fire. When Lily walked away from the Matthews' front door, she thought she had won. For a moment, it felt like everything might finally change, that someone, anyone, would stop the madness. And for a few days, it did. Samantha's world cracked. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Matthews, were horrified. The scandal wasn't just gossip, it was dynamite. An affair with a grown man, bullying a classmate, and worse, being the reason a father turned against his own daughter. The Matthews family was respected, wealthy, and deeply image conscious. They demanded answers, screamed, threatened. "You'll end this, now. You will not destroy this family." They cut her off, took her phone, locked her down. Talk of sending her away to college, early, out of town, out of reach. And that's when Samantha changed. The pouty cheerleader was gone. What remained was something colder, darker, calculating, obsessive. She blamed Lily. She ruined everything. She took him from me. Because in Samantha's warped world, Mark wasn't just a fling. He was hers, her power, her proof that she could bend adults to her will. And Lily was the obstacle, the one person standing between her and complete control. So she did what any predator does. When cornered, she plotted. By June 20th, Samantha had a plan. On the surface, it looked innocent. A message sent to Lily's phone. "Let's talk. Just us. Maybe we can fix this." She framed it as peace, reconciliation, a chance to bury the hatchet. But beneath the smiley faces and fake apologies was murder. Samantha even looped in a few of her cheerleader friends, told them it was just a prank, a scare, just to teach her a lesson. They laughed, played along. They had no idea. They were helping set the stage for something deadly, because Samantha wasn't planning to embarrass Lily. She was planning to end her. June 25th, 2011. The sun was low, the air hung heavy, and the sky above Hillridge faded into a pale, bruised gray. The kind of sky that knows something terrible is coming. Lily stood at the edge of town, staring at the abandoned factory, a cold, rusted relic of a forgotten time. Broken windows, bent metal signs, cracks along every wall, like veins leading into the heart of something evil. Samantha had messaged her earlier that day. "Let's talk. Just the two of us. I owe you an apology." Lily hesitated. Her instinct screamed no. But the hope, however faint, that maybe this nightmare could end, pulled her in. She stepped inside. Her shoes echoed on the dusty concrete floor. The air smelled of rust and rain, faint whispers in the shadows. Laughter? Then figures emerged. Samantha, a few of her cheerleader friends, all smiles. "Hey, Lily," Samantha said, voice syrupy sweet. "Let's fix this." For a moment, it almost felt real. The tension hung still, like a breath being held. But then, it snapped. Samantha's smile twisted. Her eyes burned. "You ruined everything," she hissed. "He was mine." The room turned cold. One of the girls laughed nervously. Another backed toward the door, sensing what was coming wasn't part of the plan. Samantha reached behind a pile of debris and pulled out a metal pipe. It caught the last beam of sunlight before she swung it. Full force. The sound was sickening. Bone. Metal. Lily dropped. Screams erupted. The other girls panicked, ran. But Samantha didn't stop. Over and over, fueled by fury, betrayal, obsession, she struck until there was nothing left but silence. A silence so heavy, even the wind held its breath. Standing there, alone, blood on her hands, breath ragged, Samantha finally realized she had crossed a line no one comes back from, and Lily Donovan was gone. June 26, 2011. For most people, it was a Sunday like any other. Birds chirped, sprinklers hummed. The town of Hillridge moved slowly, unaware that something unspeakable was waiting in the shadows. A local man, cutting through the edge of the old factory grounds, a shortcut he'd taken dozens of times, paused. A strange smell, a sudden chill. Then he saw it, a figure crumpled in the far corner of the abandoned building. Still. So still it didn't look human at first, but it was. Lily Donovan. Her lifeless body lay surrounded by dust, debris, and blood. Her hands twisted, her face barely recognizable. He stumbled back, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. Minutes later, the scene was locked down. Yellow tape, blue uniforms, flashing lights reflecting off broken windows. Detective Emmanuel Owens arrived shortly after. Known for his sharp mind and quiet demeanor, he surveyed the scene like a surgeon. One look told him this wasn't random. No forced entry, no robbery, no signs of a stranger's rage. This was personal. The brutality, the overkill. Someone had wanted her gone. Owens crouched beside Lily's body. He saw something others missed, a faint imprint of a cheerleading sneaker near her hand. It began. The questioning, the timelines, the digging. First stop, Mark Donovan. The grieving father appeared shattered, his eyes red, his hands shaking. He spoke of Lily's struggles, mentioned the bullying, said one name, Samantha Matthews, a lead, a crack. But Owens noticed something off. Mark's grief felt rehearsed, his answers too tidy, his eyes avoided contact. Then came the phones. Police obtained the records, call logs, messages, late-night texts between Mark and Samantha. And suddenly, everything changed. Owens stared at the screen, his face pale. The girl who bullied Lily had been sleeping with her father. The same man, now claiming to be heartbroken, had invited the predator into his home. The web of lies was just beginning to unravel. Nak Tram Shuang, Tiangjin, Thoirong, Chuyen, Sangyong, Ketitham, Kyangtang. Someone in this story wasn't telling the truth. The truth has a funny way of hiding. Sometimes it sits quietly behind silence. Other times it breaks like glass, shards flying everywhere. In the days following Lily's murder, Detective Owens kept digging, harder, deeper, sharper. He started with Samantha Matthews. She wore black, cried just enough, claimed she had no idea what happened. I was home that night. I didn't even talk to Lily anymore. This is horrible, but I had nothing to do with it. Owens nodded, took notes, then moved on. He knew Samantha was lying. The question wasn't if, it was who would crack first. So he turned to her friends, the cheerleaders, the ones Samantha had roped into her little prank. One by one, he brought them in. Some cried, some denied, but one couldn't take it. A girl named Emily K. 17, terrified. At first, she stuck to the script. It was just a joke. We weren't supposed to hurt her. But Owens leaned in, showed her the crime scene photos, the bloody pipe, Lily's broken glasses, the last text Samantha ever sent. And then Emily broke. It wasn't supposed to go that far. She said we were just going to scare her. We didn't know she brought a weapon. The dam collapsed. Owens had what he needed: intent, conspiracy, a planned encounter that turned into premeditated murder, backed by text messages, location data, phone pings that placed Samantha at the scene. The mask had finally slipped. July 5th, 2011, a warrant was signed. Samantha Matthews was arrested for the first-degree murder of Lily Donovan. Her parents, wealthy, respected, pristine, stood frozen on the lawn as officers led their daughter away in handcuffs. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted, and inside that police cruiser, Samantha didn't cry. She smiled. The game was over, or so they thought. July 15, 2011. The courthouse was full. Reporters lined the steps. Locals packed the pews. The air was thick with curiosity, with tension, with rage. At the center of it all, Samantha Matthews, once the shining star of Hillridge High, now in an orange jumpsuit, her hair tied back, her eyes distant, but her smirk still there. She stood accused of first-degree murder. Her co-conspirators, two former cheerleaders, charged with aiding and abetting. And in the front row sat the man who unknowingly lit the fuse, Mark Donovan, the father, the broken man, the guilty witness. The prosecution wasted no time. They laid out the timeline like a horror film. The bullying, the affair, the manipulation, the trap, photos, texts, location data, the blood-stained pipe, the messages Samantha sent just hours before the murder. Then came the testimonies. Emily Kay, trembling on the stand, recounted how Samantha had orchestrated everything. Her charm, her anger, her obsession with Mark. She said if Lily disappeared, everything would go back to normal. She didn't care about consequences. She just wanted control. Then, it was Mark's turn. He took the stand, face hollow, voice barely above a whisper. He spoke of grief, of being lonely, of being pulled into something he didn't understand until it was too late. She manipulated me, he said, but I let her. His words didn't absolve him. They condemned him in another way. The jury looked at him with pity, but also with disgust. A father who chose lust over love, who opened the door for a killer to walk right in. And in the end, justice spoke. Samantha Matthews, guilty of first-degree murder, sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. Her friends, lesser charges, probation, community service. But they would never escape the stain of that night. And Mark, he wasn't convicted of any crime, but he paid a different price. Civil lawsuits, public hatred, and something far worse, the knowledge that his daughter died because he let a monster in. Some verdicts come from a jury, others come from within. The trial was over. The courtroom empty. The reporters gone. The cameras turned off. But for the people of Hillridge, the scars had only just begun to show. Samantha Matthews, once a golden girl, was now her cheerleading uniform traded for prison gray. Her future locked behind bars. Her friends, though free, faced whispers in every hallway, glares in every grocery store. A lifetime of being those girls. And then, there was Mark Donovan. He wasn't in handcuffs, but he wasn't free either. After the sentencing, Mark returned to the house where Lily once lived, and never entered again. He stood outside for hours, staring at the front door, the place where laughter once echoed, where his daughter had begged him to listen, but he hadn't. He sold the house within weeks, packed up what little hadn't already been tainted by memory, and disappeared. No goodbye, no forwarding address, just gone. Rumor has it he moved 3 states away, changed his name, works at a hardware store now, keeps his head down, avoids mirrors, because every time he looks into one, he sees her, Lily, the daughter he was supposed to protect, the girl whose cries he silenced, whose murderer he let in. No jail cell could punish him more than his own guilt. And for the people of Hillridge, life resumed, but never the same. The old factory was finally boarded up. The school installed new cameras. Parents whispered warnings to their kids. Tell us if someone's hurting you. Don't stay silent like Lily. And every year on the last week of June, someone leaves a single white flower outside what used to be the Donovan house. No name, no note, just silence. A quiet reminder of what happens when love becomes blindness and silence becomes a coffin. This was the story of Lily Donovan, but it won't be the last, because secrets fester and monsters wear many faces. Stick around. We have more truths to unearth, more shadows to walk through. But first, subscribe, and never ever ignore the voice calling for help before it's gone forever.